On today's World Insight, civilians have been caught in the crossfire in the Israel-Palestine conflict. We speak to a Chinese national who details her harrowing evacuation from Israel. And the latest flare-up in the Israel-Palestine conflict highlights the lack of an enduring peace. How can Israel, Palestine, and the international community find a resolution to one of the world's longest-running conflicts?
Hello and welcome to World Insight with me, Tian Wei. Third day since the conflict between Israel and Hamas from Palestine reignited. The confrontation so far has left at least over 1,000 dead and thousands injured from both sides. As the crossfire between Israel and Hamas escalates, the shock waves from airstrikes and gunfire reverberate through residential areas. Among the horrified fleeing locals, Chinese citizens were present to witness the violence. Mo Ji is one of them. I talked to her on what she saw in Israel. Mo Ji, thank you so much for accepting our interview. I know you have been having a hectic trip, especially with the latest incident taking place in Israel. Tell me more about your trip and what happened.
I was in Israel during my daughter's fall break. We thought, Israel, Jordan, that's really with a great culture, history, we are so amazed by everything we have been experiencing until the last 2 days. We thought we are already about to leave. Then at the morning breakfast, just in the middle, the hotel, guy just tell everybody, just go downstairs, go to the basement. We have no idea what is happening. Then I asked, what happened? The person cannot speak English, but he can type English. He showed me his phone. He typed, there is a wall. I was very, very surprised, but followed the crowd. Everybody went to the basement. Then we just staying there, see what is happening. But we can clearly hear the sirens.
So what was the time when you were summoned into the basement? What did you hear after that? How long did it take you and others to come out?
Actually, that was at 7:15 a.m. Jerusalem time. So we heard the sirens just 1 hour after we went into the basement. Everybody followed, but the sirens has been released just around 30 minutes. Everybody went up. So nobody knows what is happening.
Did you see ruins after the attack? Do we know exactly where the explosions were and who made it happen? Or you only heard it through the news?
For me, when I was just stayed at the center of the old city in Jerusalem, so I can only hear, the two bombs. That was around Jerusalem time in the morning, around 10 to 11 a.m. That twice. So we double check. It's not something from the elevator or something, but it was outside. It was nearby, but we cannot see it.
When you were in the basement, who were with you? Who were the people around you? And what have been people's reactions at the time? What about you and your daughter?
At that time, it's all, most of the people at the dining hall is all like the tourists. So we are accompanied by the hotel staff. They are very professional and they are very calm. They just ask everybody, please follow the rules, please go down. And especially, our tour guide locally and also the tour guide, from Shenzhen with us, they are very, very responsible. But they show they are calm, but I know from internally, they are also very, worried about it. My daughter didn't know what's happening. She's only 12 years old. But she said, is that true? There's a war is happening.
It's very sad, of course, for such a young age to understand the decades-long conflict, if not hundreds of years, and also what it means to lose life. Having said that, though, what about the responses from the Chinese embassy in Jerusalem?
I called, the Israeli, the consulate number. There is a seeking protection number, but that's a Saturday. so they didn't work. But the phone was directly transferred to Ministry of Foreign Affairs. They have a global call receiving center. So when they received the, answer the call, it was very fast. When they answer the call, you can hear the background. A lot of people are calling. And I know that should be people from Israel, right? So they clearly ask us, your name, your phone number, which hotel you are staying at, your passport number. So it's very, very clear. So they took both me and my daughter's phone number. I called around 1 p.m. local time, British time, but I was very surprised. 2 p.m. local time, Hong Kong immigration called me. So actually, I think Ministry of Foreign Affairs worked very, very swiftly. They contact Hong Kong because we are the Hong Kong residents currently. Hong Kong immigration, they called me around over 30 minutes. Not only for all this information, they asked me specifically about when is my returning flight. I told them clearly, it is just the second day. It's just August 8th. The war started on August 7th. Then there's a wage flight. I say Cathay Pacific, CX676. Right. So I'm asking them, so is there a possibility the flight can still be there? They made it very clear. We will try all our best to protect all our residents. I was hugely relieved, by what they have meant to us.
At the most critical time to be of your help and support. So the flight did take off, right? Even though there was a minor delay.
It's not really a delay. It was actually leave early. What had happened after that? So it was 2 p.m. in local time, and around 8 p.m. local time, I heard from Cathay Pacific, internally, they are making frequent contacts with immigration of Hong Kong. They decided, whether they should approve, the departure of this flight. Then by the end, they say, we need to. But in terms of protecting the whole flight to coming back, they change the returning time. They do not want the flight to stay in Jerusalem for a longer time. Before the scheduled time is they arrive in Jerusalem on August 8th at 7 a.m. Then the scheduled, the unscheduled time actually is in the afternoon, 2:45 p.m. But they move it early. They move it to 9:30 a.m. So, until 10 p.m. Local time, I receive call from Cathay Pacific. Locally, they say, we want to make sure everybody who has booked this flight, they can be on the flight. They kept calling. And around 11 p.m., the Israeli, Jerusalem consulate called me, checking me whether I'm safe, which hotel I'm at, give me a specific number and ask me if I need any help. Give me a specific local number so you can call anytime. So I feel like, I'm not, at, any of the worry at all because I know there is the whole country behind us.
So good to know about that, even though it's such a tragedy that you witnessed over there. Having said that, though, the trip from your hotel to the airport was quite a journey, isn't it? At the time, not many drivers would be willing, when there was still the danger of bombing, to drive a whole bus of tourists to the airport. But you did meet one, and you were there.
That was something before I traveled to Israel. Many of my friends mentioned, the road, that's the number one highway from Jerusalem to, to Tel Aviv. That's actually one of the most, being attacked high road. Whenever you travel on that road, you should be careful. Then I know even that should be even serious. So, our tour guide, we have, collectively made a decision. We will leave early. So the whole tour left the hotel at 5 a.m. We got up at 4 a.m., 5 a.m. The road from Jerusalem to Tel Aviv is only 1 hour. Without traffic, we only took 40 minutes. But what we were really thankful is the Israeli driver. He is so brave.
And what is your takeaway from this quite a dramatic and certainly memorable trip?
I think, when I really reflect, there are several fold things, as a tourist there. I think, number one, we see, in the past 2 years, many of my friends went to Israel, went to Jordan, it's very sound, peaceful, and, trip. I see them very enjoyable. Now I know it should be safe. That's why I there by myself with my daughter there. Then the thing is, we cannot neglect the unpeacefulness, under the peace. So that's why, everybody needs to know it's shaky. If peace without root, without soil, is not the real peace. It's not rock solid. This is something we always, cannot neglect for any people who are on the Arab, peninsula. So this is number one thing. Number two thing, if we meet with this kind of danger, what we should do. Given my observations, most of the people, they are just sitting there. They are going to the lobby. They go outside of the hotel. They go to the old, city of Jerusalem, even taking photos because they think that's the last day they should do so. That actually is very dangerous. And what they are missing the most is they didn't turn to help to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to report their safety. I think this is very, very crucial and important. The more you are asking for help, then the more help you can get. So this is, and also, thirdly is, we know China is a country with friends all over the world. The country will certainly, support the Chinese people. You can't imagine how Chinese people are here, very welcomed, by the countries I have been visited. So this is why, as oneself, you need to report your safety.
Where are you and your daughter right now?
We are in Hong Kong. We back.
You already safely arrived.
Absolutely. So I want to also mention to you, after we arrived at the airport, then it's scheduled 9:30 a.m. But when we were back to Hong Kong this morning, I lost one suitcase, a big suitcase. So I'm like, where is the suitcase? Then the thing is, then I understand. Our flight tries to leave the airport as soon as possible.
The latest flare-up in the Israel-Palestinian conflict highlights the lack of enduring peace. How can Israel, Palestine, and the international community find a solution to one of the world's longest-running conflicts? Welcome back. This is World Insight with me, Tian Wei. The fierce conflict between Israel and Palestinian armed groups Hamas have caused massive casualties on both sides and brought agony to panicked civilians. China calls on relevant parties to show restraint to protect civilians and to de-escalate. The international community needs to demand a resolution to the Palestine question and contribute to the resumption of peace talks between the two parties. China will continue to work with the international community towards that end.
The only way out of the recurring Palestinian-Israeli conflict is to resume peace talks, implement a two-state solution, push for a comprehensive and proper settlement of the Palestinian issue through political means, and address the legitimate concerns of all parties. China will continue to work tirelessly with the international community to this end.
So what's the regional and global impact of the conflict? I talked to Wang Jin, associate professor from Northwest University of China. Here is his insights. Mr. Wang, observing from afar, what do you make of the nature of the latest incidents?
Well, the latest incident is a new round of the conflict between Israelis and the Palestinians. I think on the one hand, of course, it is a very unfortunate events for the Israeli civilians because the attacks from the Palestinian Hamas and Jihad from Gaza Strip actually led to large numbers of casualties of Israeli civilians. But on the other hand, I think we cannot forget the fact that it is a result of the years of the stalemate, political stalemate between Israeli and the Palestinians peace process. And also it is a very result of the disappointment, also dissatisfaction and even anger of the Palestinian civilians towards the stalemate of the peace process between the Israeli and the Palestinian peace. So I think, yeah, of course, I think that is why we should, on the one hand, from China's perspective, call for the ceasefire between both parties, Israelis and the Palestinians, while on the other hand, just as the Chinese government pointed out, that international efforts and international assistance should be there immediately to help the local people to stop the fire exchanges and help the local civilians. Because on the one hand, as we can witness and we can observe from the news reportings that the latest exchange of fire does still continue, and also lead to much more casualties, both from Israeli civilians as well as from the Palestinian side. So I think in the future, given the fact that actually Israelis, they suffered such large numbers of the casualties in the first day and as well as the first hours after this crisis erupted, I think Israelis' revenge will be very heavy and also led to much more Palestinian civilians as well as Palestinian militants from Hamas and from Jihad will emerge in the future. And on the other hand, it is very possible that we were talking about this kind of the fear or possibilities that this kind of the confrontation will lead to escalations, further escalations, not only between Israelis and Hamas, Israeli and the Jihad in the Gaza Strip, but also that might lead to the further confrontation, new conflicts erupted in the West Bank and in the Eastern Jerusalem. Because traditionally, that we're talking about the conflicts that are always concentrated upon this the front line between Israelis and Gaza Strip. But now, during the past years, given the fact that more and more Jewish settlements are constructing in the West Bank and East Jerusalem, and more Jewish settlers they going to the territories of Palestinians in the West Bank. So that leads to much more distrust and conflict between the local Palestinians and the new coming Jewish settlers. So in the future, given the very new round of waves of the attacks and exchange of fires between Israelis and the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip, I think new possibilities of new conflicts might also erupt in the West Bank and East Jerusalem. So this is the kind of also the spillover effect in the Israeli and Palestinian relations.
So this is one of the deadlock we have seen over the past decades, and many say this is so unfortunate that yesterday once more.
So the conflict between Israelis and the Palestinians, on the one hand, there is no winner. There will be no winner. Everybody is suffering. Actually, this reminds me of the stories that we and when I experienced my life in Israel many years ago. When I talk with the Palestinians, I asked him, okay, now you always launched attacks against the Israelis, but then you kill one Israeli person or civilian or soldier that led to maybe 10 or 20 Palestinians be killed. So why you did that? I mean, this is a kind of imbalanced threat. So he told me very with another logic. He said, okay, no, this is not imbalanced. This is very balanced because we feel threatened and the Israeli also feels threatened. This is the kind of the balanced logic. So that is something that actually make nobody safe. And on the other hand, we have to say this is a tragedy that has been lasted for decades. That tragedy not only for the Israeli civilians and also not only for Israel country, but also for the local Palestinians as well as for the neighboring countries, because it actually will influence everybody. So under this kind of the uphold spiral, mutual threatened scenario, nobody will be safe. That we should find a way out.
When we talk about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, if we could use that phrase, in fact, it's not just about the two parties involved. It's very much about the nature of conflict in the Middle East and how outside parties are involved in the area. So, Mr. Wang, How do you look at the latest incident in a much bigger context?
Yes, you're right that if we're talking about Israeli and Palestinian crisis or Israeli-Palestinian conflict, on the one hand, yes, we focus upon the two parties. They have their traditional hatred, they have their traditional problems, and their mechanism for their future peace is not being found. So that is, of course, the problem is still there. But on the other hand, you are right that there were still outside players. And especially on the one hand, these outside players will influence the ongoing problem of the Israeli and Palestinian. And on the other hand, the crisis and the conflicts between the Israelis and Palestinians will further influence their internal politics and internal social opinions. So I think, yes, we have already witnessed and still witnessing the peace process in the Middle East as the rapprochement between Iran and Saudi Arabia, and also the relation improved between Israel and Turkey, and, for example, Turkey and Saudi Arabia, Turkey and Iran, and also maybe possible that normalization ties between Israel and Saudi Arabia. But we cannot forget that the Israel and the Palestinian conflict is still the very deeply rooted problem in this region, that Palestinian and Israeli problem or conflict cannot be ignored or forgotten into the corner with this peace process. We cannot forget this problem. It is still there. If this kind of the problem are not very well solved, just as what we are witnessing, the ongoing conflict between Israel and the Palestinians right now in the southern Israel, it will lead to another negative factors that could prevent the ongoing peace process in the Middle East. So that is why we should still continue to focus upon this Israeli and Palestinian conflict, and also to help the local people there.
Mr. Wang, how do you see an ever more complicated geopolitical landscape in our world today compared to, like, just say, 30 years ago, 20 years ago, when there were some of these significant events related to Middle East peace happened, for example, at Camp David and etc. So now it seems that the geopolitical phenomenon and atmosphere can be quite different compared to then. So under the current circumstances, the latest conflict in the Middle East between the Palestinians and the Israelis, what would that mean for the other players?
I think, yes, this is quite different. What we're talking about, the geopolitics circumstances right now in the Middle East and the circumstances about 30 or 40 years ago, because when we're talking about the geopolitics circumstances in about 30 or 30 years ago, it is still kind of zero-sum circumstances, zero-sum thinking that dominated this region. So it means your gain will be my loss and your win will be my lose. So against this backdrop, then nobody will be the real winner. Everybody is competing with each other, and everybody is trying to define itself belonging to one or another different geopolitical local camps. So that against this backdrop, it's very difficult to make peace. But during the past decades that you mentioned, a lot of things has changed. For example, much more international assistance are coming, and much more international mediation efforts are coming. And also several regional mechanism has already grown up. For example, if we are looking at Israeli and Palestinian, we can say about the peace process started from 1993, and also we can witness the normalization ties between Israeli and neighboring Arab states, especially between Israel and Egypt in 1978, and also Israeli normalization ties with Jordan in 1994, and also in 2020, four Arab countries, Bahrain, the UAE, the Morocco and Sudan, they also normalized ties with Israel. So this is the kind of new process in the Middle East, and new thinking starting to come. But no matter what happened, I mean, Israeli-Palestinian conflict is still the very foundation, is still the very, very important factor in this region. If we cannot solve this problem, I mean, a lot of geopolitics achievement, especially peaceful achievement, might be destroyed in the future. So we have still to focus our attention on this region, especially the ongoing crisis between Israel and the Palestinians.
China, of course, has been playing a constructive role for the peace in the Middle East. For example, bringing Saudi Arabia and Iran more to discussions about their future, and meanwhile playing a constructive role in development of the region. So how do you see China will be able to balance its role at this moment?
We should expect that China could play a role, should contribute something, but we cannot depend that China could do everything once and for all. I don't think it is quite likely in the recent future. But we cannot forget that China really has already done as much as we can to the local peace process. For example, that China has already played a very active, constructive role in the peace process in Syria, and also very active, constructive role in the nuclear peace negotiation process of the Iran nuclear issue, and also helping other regional countries. When we are looking at the ongoing Israel and Palestinian the conflict right now, just as Chinese government expressed, first of all, China hopes that both sides, Israelis and the Palestinians, they should put their weapons down and to find ways to restore their talks, because the violence and especially the mutual threat might only lead to much more casualties of civilian casualties, and it cannot solve this problem, and will lead to much more problems. And on the other hand, China has already clearly, very rightly stressed that it is very highly necessary to restore peace talks between Israel and Palestinians, because after 2013 and 2014, when John Kerry he held the United States led Israeli and Palestinian peace talks. After that round of talks, I mean, about 10 years ago, no peace talks were organized. And the stalemate and the deadlocks continues. So that makes force everybody to find a way out. Makes everybody disappointed. So that is why China hopes to international society will do something. And on the lastly, but not finally, but not lastly, that China mentioned and stressed the importance of the two-state solution. The two-state solution should continue to be the very key for the Israeli and Palestinian peace. And that is a very key principle that should be maintained by not only Israeli and Palestinian, but also the rest of the world.
Okay. Mr. Wang, thank you so much for joining us. That's Professor Wang Jing on the latest conflict between Israel and Hamas. That's all the time we have for today. If you'd like to know more, search World Insight, check out our YouTube channel. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook. I'm Tian Wei on behalf of my team. Thanks for being with us. Bye for now.